The day I met the wrong people was the day everything changed. At first, it didn't feel like a fall. Just a few careless steps, a few bad choices wrapped in laughter and false promises. But slowly, quietly, they led me down a path I couldn't escape. Life was never the same again. I became someone I never thought I'd be, a homeless wanderer, going from door to door in search of scraps, begging for food with eyes too ashamed to meet anyone's gaze. Each day blurred into the next. My body grew weaker and my soul more fragile. The drugs, once occasional, became essential. I kept increasing the dose until it didn't numb me. It just barely kept me breathing. There was no turning back anymore. At one point, I had managed to save a little money, nothing significant, but enough to survive for a short while. That small amount disappeared in a month or two. I spent it on what I thought I needed, blind to how quickly it would vanish. By the time I came to my senses, my pockets were empty. And worse, my hands were even emptier. They held no hope, no purpose, no strength. But money wasn't my only problem. Soon the drugs that kept me upright started slipping from reach. There were days I had nothing, and those days were the cruelest. I would lie, curled in a corner of some forgotten room, shaking and whispering to no one. The world outside kept moving. Mine had stopped. My mother and father, they knew. They saw what was happening to me long before I dared to admit it to myself. Their eyes held sorrow, not judgment, but I shut them out anyway. I denied everything they said, clung to my silence, and built a wall around my crumbling world. No one could save me, not because they didn't want to, but because I wouldn't let them. I still thought I had some kind of control. I still believed I hadn't fallen far enough, but my behavior told the truth. I refused to speak. Even those who barely knew me, the spendthrifts, the party-goers, the ones who once welcomed me, started to notice. They looked at me sideways, whispering behind raised hands, glancing at each other with nervous eyes. I wasn't hiding it well anymore. I could see it in their faces. They knew there was a pebble in my shoe, a hidden pain, a silent weight, something dark and spreading. So I ran. I went door to door, not for food this time, but for escape, from them, from myself, from everything. One night, long after midnight, I slipped away from yet another party. The music still echoed behind me, loud, meaningless noise. I was drunk, not the kind of drunk that makes you laugh, but the kind that makes the world spin. A half-empty bottle dangled from my fingers as I stumbled through the street, cold air hitting my face like slaps of truth. And then, light. A harsh, blinding white light cut through the night and struck my eyes. I turned, blinking, and saw it. A car, speeding toward me like something out of a dream or a warning. It wasn't swerving. It wasn't slowing. And I didn't move. I knew very well what that kind of car, going that kind of speed at that hour, could do to a body like mine. One hit, and there'd be nothing left. No blood, no bones. Just a stain on the road, and maybe a short headline no one would read. But when I looked again, there was nothing. Just darkness. No headlights. No car. No crash. No broken arms. No broken legs. No road beneath me even. Only silence. I blinked slowly, confused, and tilted my head to the right. My body felt numb, but I forced my eyes open, just a little. And that's when I saw him, an old man. He stood quietly beside me, neither smiling nor frowning, just watching. The old man stood beside me, his long white hair flowing like silver threads in the dark, a thick beard covering most of his aged face. He wore a long brown robe, the kind you'd expect from another century, as if he had stepped out of time itself. He looked at me with a sharp, frowning gaze, and then spoke. "You are a good prey," he said slowly, his voice deep and gravelly. "But you are not worthy." Before I could even open my mouth, he turned and walked past me. Fast, decisive. I spun around, trying to follow him, but by the time my mind caught up, he was gone. Vanished into the night. That entire night, I lay awake in the dim silence of my empty room. I couldn't stop thinking about the old man. His words circled in my head like vultures. "You are a good prey, but not worthy." What did he mean? Why did it sound like a warning? Or worse, a judgment? Days passed. My mind never really left that moment. And then, one afternoon, something strange happened. I was walking aimlessly down the street, hungry and half lost in thought, when something stopped me. The wooden door of the local grocery store was slightly open, nothing special, but for some reason, my eyes locked onto the figure standing just inside. He had his back turned at first, speaking to the cashier. But then he turned, and my heart froze. That face. Familiar. Deeply familiar. My memory scrambled to place him, pulling pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle. I'd seen him before. I knew I had. I could feel it in my spine. And then it hit me. The white hair, the long robe, the eyes that had looked through me that night. It was him. The old man who had called me prey. Without thinking, I walked toward the store, barely noticing the people around me. My pulse quickened. He wasn't even looking at me, as if I didn't exist. "Hey!" I called out, my voice shaky. "Old man!" He didn't flinch, didn't turn, but in a low, cold voice, he muttered, "Get lost, trash." He said it while keeping his gaze under his right eye, like he was watching something else, like I wasn't worth facing. I felt a flash of anger burn through my confusion. "Speak properly," I snapped. That made him turn. Slowly. He looked at me directly this time. But it wasn't a normal look. There was something ancient in his eyes, like staring into a bottomless well, where time, memory, and light go to die. His pupils were too black, too still, and the corners of his mouth twisted, not into a smile, but into something colder, something almost inhuman. His face twisted into a mask of mockery and contempt. A grin tugged cruelly at the corners of his lips, as if every smile had been carved from bitterness and scorn. "We can tell worthless people from afar," he sneered, voice dripping with disdain. "Have you never heard the saying, 'An empty barrel makes the loudest noise'?" He reached up and stroked his beard thoughtfully. "An unemployed addict," he said quietly, almost as if savouring the words. I stood frozen. His knowledge shocked me, more than anything my parents had ever said. How did he know? How could he see the truth I hid so carefully? The old man didn't wait for an answer. He simply turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows as silently as he had come. Days slipped by, one after another, blurring into the same grey haze of desperation and regret. One evening, as the sky began to darken and the streetlights flickered awake, I wandered aimlessly again. I felt hollow inside, talking softly to God, pleading for some mercy or sign, anything to pull me back from the edge. It was around 7 o'clock, and the chill of night settled over the empty streets. Just as I was about to turn and leave the desolate alley behind, a presence stopped me cold. A figure. Yes, a person. Curiosity pulled me closer, heart pounding. It was him, the old man. He stood there quietly, watching, as if he had been following me all this time without me even noticing. I swallowed my fear and whispered, "Hello." The old man looked me square in the eyes and said, "Looks like today you're in better spirits." I shook my head, voice barely above a whisper. "No, it's the opposite. I feel worse than ever." He eyed me sharply and asked, You need money? For alcohol, yes? I dropped my head, shame flooding my chest. Yes. Without a word, the old man reached into his pocket and pulled out something I had never seen in my life. Crisp bills folded neatly. He opened his hand. $500. It's yours, he said simply. I stared in disbelief, barely able to grasp what I was seeing. I reached out to take the money, but he jerked his hand back. I have a job for you, he said, his voice low and certain. If you do it, clean and tidy, I'll give you more than this every day. My hand trembled as I asked, Is this real? He laughed, a harsh, almost cruel sound that echoed in the empty street. Looks like you've never seen this much money before, but I have plenty more if you work for me. I stared at him, curiosity battling my fear. So, if I work for you, you'll give me 10 times this every day? He nodded once. Exactly. I swallowed hard, meeting his gaze. All right. But before you tell me what this job is, I have to say one thing. I don't commit crimes or illegal work. Since when is digging land illegal? He said. The old man smiled faintly, his eyes shadowed beneath his brow. It's enough for me that you dig a grave every night, he said quietly, and never ask questions. His words hung heavy in the cold night air. I didn't hesitate. I agreed blindly. Now I'll dig graves for him, I told myself. Do whatever he wants. It's his business, his fault. I accepted his job without fully understanding it. He handed me an address, somewhere far outside the city limits, and said, Tomorrow night, be there by 9. The next evening, I took my father's old shovel from the barn and made my way to the address. It was a wide field, empty and still beneath the moonlight. I sat down, waiting for the old man. Half an hour passed, no sign of him. Frustration bubbled inside me. You're being fooled, I muttered. He lied. Just as I was about to leave, turning my back on the strange promise, he appeared. From nowhere, as if conjured by the shadows themselves. He walked right past me without a word. I was stunned. Then he said, Follow me. I followed him slowly, each step heavier than the last. We walked so long that I lost all sense of smell, all sense of time, until finally we arrived at an old cemetery, cold, silent, and forgotten beneath the moonlight. He wandered among the graves like a restless spirit, his fingers lightly touching the weathered stones. A low, eerie song escaped his lips, words I couldn't understand, but that seemed to echo through the night. Then he stopped beside one grave. A mysterious smile curled on his lips as he stared down at it. He touched the dirt next to the grave and said softly, Dig here. I looked up at him with a mixture of respect and fear. Do you want me to open the grave? I asked cautiously. His terrifying eyes locked onto mine. Didn't I tell you not to ask questions? He growled. The grave is not to be opened. Just dig 1 meter next to it, then go back home. That dark night, in the presence of that mysterious old man, I no longer dared to say no. I took the shovel and began digging, the earth cold and heavy beneath my hands. After I finished, I climbed out of the hole and said, Here you go. This is your grave. He studied the clean, neat pit I had dug and smiled. Without a word, he handed me a thick bundle of folded bills again. You can go now, he said, voice low but firm. I don't need you here anymore. Then he added a final warning that sent a shiver through my bones. Don't turn your head back, not even for a moment. If you do, something bad will happen to you. For a moment, his words made the hair on my entire body stand on end. I was truly terrified. In the dead silence of that night, I was certain. Whatever haunted this place wasn't entirely of this world. I told myself, it's none of your business. You wanted the money, and you got it. With that thought, I turned away and headed back home. That entire night, I sat counting the bills over and over again, the crisp notes piling up like a fragile promise. I dreamed about how rich I would be in a year, what I could do, where I could go, who I might become. Days slipped by, and then the old man called me again. "Be at the address by 9, his voice had said. That night, I was there, waiting in the same empty field. This time, he was waiting for me. As soon as he saw me, he began walking, and I followed. Once again, we headed to the old cemetery. He led me to a second grave. "Dig here," he said. As I passed by the grave I had dug before, a strange feeling gripped me. It looked untouched, as if no one had disturbed the soil. The ground was so clean, so perfect, that it seemed no foot had ever stepped there. What if, I thought, what if someone else dug it? Was I dreaming? Was this some cruel illusion? I opened my mouth, about to question the old man, but before I could speak, he said, "Hey, dig here." I snapped out of my confusion, telling myself, "Stop doubting. Just do what he says. Put the money in your pocket." Filled with a strange joy, my thoughts swirling with dreams of a sweeter future, I began to dig. The shovel bit into the earth, the soil loose beneath my hands. But just over a meter down, my blade hit something hard. At first, I thought it was just a stone blocking my way. But as I dug deeper, dirt spilling aside, a horrifying sight slowly came into view. A human skeleton. My blood froze, and my whole body turned to ice. "Why is this skeleton lying here?" I whispered to myself. "Does it belong to someone else?" I glanced at the old man. He was standing silently watching, but I saw something strange in his eyes. Quietly, my hands trembled as I brushed dirt back over the bones, hiding them once more. I took a deep breath and climbed out of the shallow grave. "This work's done for tonight," I said, voice shaking. "Pay me. I want to go." The old man's hand reached into his pocket. "Tonight, like the last time, you did your job very well." The old man handed me 2 thick bundles of folded money this time. I took them quietly and started to move away. But then, something strange tugged at me, an urge to turn back, to see what was happening. I hesitated, curiosity battling caution, and then I saw it. The old man was acting unlike anything I had ever seen. He twisted and coiled his body like a serpent, moving with eerie fluidity. His face, once stern and grave, now broke into strange expressions as he began to sing loudly. In his hand, he held a bell, ringing it rhythmically, like a dance. It was the first time I saw this serious old man act with such odd, almost ridiculous movements. I laughed quietly to myself, mocking him. This old man is working with magic, I thought. But seeing him dance and make those sounds, it's ridiculous. I was quietly chuckling until everything changed. My heart nearly stopped. What happened next was unlike anything I had ever witnessed. Moment by moment, my eyes widened, my mouth fell open, and my heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst. Breathing became difficult. He shouted louder and louder beside the grave. The old man turned into a black snake. My body trembled, my legs powerless to move. But somehow, I forced myself to run, stumbling out of that cursed old cemetery. The next morning, without saying a word to anyone, not even my parents, I left home for good, and just like that, I disappeared.